The music you listen to says a lot about who you are. In this podcast, we discuss how that music may shape your life. We talk to normal people with a love for music and people that are in the music industry in one form or another. My name is Craig Seibert, and we want to know your music story. Welcome to Music Musing. Welcome back to Music Musing. Today, my guest is somebody I've actually had on our podcast before. I've been on his as well. This is Pete Pardo from seaoftranquility.org. Sea of Tranquility on YouTube, Sea of Tranquility on podcast. Dude, you put it out in podcast? I don't even think I asked about that.
No, it's just on YouTube. Actually.
Just on YouTube, yeah.
Just a video blogger, and we have the webzine, and of course, I have the second channel, Comic Book Geezers. So yeah,
and yeah, we're gonna dig all. We're gonna
right now.
Yeah, we're gonna dig into that. Yeah, let's dig into that. But again, Pete and I've kind of went back and forth on both of our podcasts and guested on both. And with the new format of mine, Pete, I wanted to bring you on and just kind of talk about how you got into music. And you've put bits and pieces here and there in your videos, and people you talk to on the videos, on your videos on Sea of Tranquility, you kind of get hints and insights. And we've even talked about it on my podcast occasionally when we had you on with my brother and I. But this is kind of the nitty gritty. This is kind of digging down and finding out, from base one, and that's usually where I start. I'm actually going to skip a little bit ahead, kind of like I did with one of my previous ones. I know you play guitar. I've seen you play guitar. You do a little bit of dabbling on Facebook and showing some videos. And I see them rotating behind you every once in a while. Yeah, exactly. Oh, SG. Is that an SG?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Sometimes I change the one out front because that's usually the one I've been kind of playing the most of late. Not that I've been playing a lot of late, but that's the one that I picked up the most recently. So usually you'll see either one of the Les Pauls there, or the Strat there, or the SG, occasionally the Telly, it all depends. Or the Paul Reed Smith, it depends, But yeah, I'm more of a collector that dabbles. I've been collecting and dabbling and playing, since I was like 15 years old. And
so that's that's where I wanted to jump to first. And then I'll go back to the beginning like I normally do. But did you ever play in a band?
I was in a band back in high school for a little bit. And that was, a couple of years, and we played a couple small little party gigs, and that was about it. It never really went anywhere, and that's really about it. So nothing more than that. I attempted to kind of record some home demos and things over the years, but I'm not a songwriter, and I'm more of just a guy who likes to dabble on guitar and play riffs and jam along to stuff occasionally. And that's basically it.
Well, for as little as you say you do it, you're pretty darn good for playing along with other stuff. So,
well, thank you. I think I'm pretty awful, but whatever.
We're our own worst critics. I get it. Trust me. So let's go back then. Let's start with, obviously music is a big part of your life. You said you have a website, a webzine. You're reviewing music all the time. You're looking at new music. You're looking back at old music and kind of digging deep into those records, those old albums and everything, picking some obscure names for bands that, or obscure bands out there that just have these obscure names. There's a lot of times I just check into your site just to find out if it's a band I've never heard of before. But
chances are it probably is.
Yeah, exactly. But so when you were younger, how did your family have an influence on you? Not even necessarily your direct family, but cousins, uncles, whoever you were around. Do you remember kind of like that first introduction to music, to how it was kind of brought to you?
Yeah, I mean, my parents were, and still to this day, I mean, they're older now, obviously, but they were never much more than a listen to the radio type of a family. And, they had some albums around the house. We had some Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, some Italian, Spanish stuff. And my mother was into the crooners, so there were Engelbert Humperdinck.
Oh, gotcha.
Barry Manilow, that sort of thing. My father was a Beatles fan, so he had a whole bunch of Beatles records, but they were not, sit down and listen to music type of people. The music would be on in the background, and that's basically it. But the radio was always on, whether it was on in the car, in the kitchen, outside, whatever, it was always on. So I got I got turned on to AM, pop radio at a pretty early age. And I've told this story a million times. One of my fondest memories is that on the Saturday and Sunday mornings, my father worked in New York City, which is about an hour and a half from where we grew up.
Okay.
He worked in New York City every day. So he commuted into the city really early in the morning, hopped on the train, and then didn't get home till like 8 o'clock at night. So we very rarely saw him during the week. But then on the weekends, he would pop my brother and I in the car, and we'd take a 5-minute ride into town to go get the newspapers. And also for us to go buy comic books. Well, in the car, Dad would have the AM radio blasting. And I remember growing up to, songs by, America. And one of my favorite songs of all time is Brandy by Looking Glass. I always remember hearing that song in the radio while we're reading our comic books or anticipating getting our comic books. So, I always have fond memories of hearing AM radio. Which is usually CBS FM or so, or one of the local stations, and hearing all those great pop songs from the 70s. But other than that, my parents didn't really influence a lot of what I grew to love not long afterwards. And a lot of that, my cousins from Long Island were actually, a year and 3 years older than me.
Uh-huh.
And they were getting into, Styx and Bad Company and Kansas and Meatloaf and Boston and Queen and all that type of stuff. So right around the time where I started getting into Kiss, we would go to my aunt and uncle's house, and I'd hang out with my cousins, and they'd have all these great new albums, David Bowie, all this kind of stuff. And I was like, wow, this is all great. And that really kind of started me to listen to more stuff. And then I started exploring on my own. I would go to record shops. My parents would take us to the mall, or we go into the city with my father, and we go to like J&R Music World in New York City. And I just started looking through the racks, and I would buy stuff based on album covers. So I was like, oh, this is this ELO, Out of the Blue, Giant Spaceship, great. Boston, yeah. Giant Spaceship. Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell, crazy guy on a motorcycle with long hair. Yes, So I just started, buying stuff, and I started listening to like Paul McCartney and Wings and ELO and Kansas and Steve Miller Band and the Eagles and stuff like that. But Kiss was my really what I was into. And then, one day in like 1979, I went to a buddy's house. My mother dropped me off. It was like on a Saturday. He goes, oh, I picked up this really cool record at like a flea market or something. I don't even remember where he said he got it. I was like, okay, cool. And he puts it on, and I was like, holy cow, this is like the heaviest and greatest thing I've ever heard in my life. And it was Black Sabbath's Pardo.
I was going to say, it had to be Black Sabbath.
Yeah. And I was like, from that moment on, I was like, yeah, Kiss is cool, but this is the shit.
So what time frame are we looking at that point?
That's about 79. So I was 13 years old.
Okay. So a little bit before you were talking about playing with bands and playing guitar and stuff with bands. Okay. So you go from crooners and like 50s pop to kind of the rock and hard rock, and then right into metal. And again, it seems like more it came from your cousins and older, people influencing you on that. Did they also influence you on guitar as well as picking up the guitar?
No,
okay.
Not at all. Yeah. I think I was actually prompted to start playing. I was, like I mentioned before, I was a big Paul McCartney and Wings fan. I love Paul McCartney, and he's such a great bass player. So I actually wanted to play bass. So I convinced my parents to get me like a cheap, like Hohner, Gibson SG, like an FG bass, basically.
Yeah.
Have, right? And so they bought me, it was a real cheap bass. They bought me that and this little bass amp for Christmas one year. And again, I was probably like that 13 years old. And I noodled around on that for a little while, but that kind of really didn't do much of anything. And then one day I went to a flea market, and some guy, it was local where I grew up, some guy was selling this beat to crap little electric guitar that was missing most of the strings, and one of the volume button was gone. I couldn't even tell you what brand it was. It was the cheapest thing you'd ever, and it was for like $5. So I bought it, and the neck was warped, and it was just absolutely awful. So I plunked around on that for a little while. The bass, I just kind of like forgot about that. And then one day my parents were like, you seem like you're enjoying the guitar more than the bass. Why don't you consider maybe getting an electric guitar, like a good one? So I was like, I'd love one, right? So we went to this little music shop a couple miles away from where we lived called Zach's Music Shop in Florida, New York. And I saw this ridiculously cool hot pink BC Rich son of a bitch guitar.
Oh
And I remember at the time
man,
it was like maybe $300, maybe not even. I seem to recall it was about
is that
300
because it was pink or?
because it was pink. It had DiMarzio pickups on it,
Oh,
but it was
nice.
like $300. I'm like, God, how am I going to afford that? So I put it on layaway, which means I couldn't have it, right?
Yeah.
But my parents said they would give me a portion of the money as a down payment, but I had to agree to go take lessons there. And so they hooked me up with lessons. I only took lessons for a few months. But the guy was really cool. And when I went to go take the lessons, they would let me play the BC Rich guitar that I couldn't take home yet, but I could play it
It's
during
like
the
a
lesson,
tease.
like a tease. Yeah. But eventually I worked some like, raking leaves and mowing grass and shoveling snow, all that kind of nonsense. I worked a couple little jobs here and there to save up some money, and I eventually did get that guitar. Within I don't know 8 months, a year, or something like that, and I finally brought it home. And I got a little PV amp, because everybody had PVs back in the day. If you
Yeah, I
if
had
you were
one.
a kid, we all had them, right? They're good amps, right?
They are.
And yeah, and then so that was kind of my beginnings with playing guitar. And right, and this time of course I'm getting into like Zeppelin and Deep Purple and
Yeah.
Scorpions and Iron Maiden, Judas Priest. All that stuff is starting to happen right about this time. So my humble beginnings as a Kiss fan had morphed into other things. And Black Sabbath of course was my band at the time, and Deep Purple was probably number two, but I liked all this other stuff. I started like listening to guitar players. Like I loved Robin Trower, and then I discovered Gary Moore and Michael Schenker and all these guys, and I was like, that was it.
And were you
So
trying to kind of like play like them, or was it more just you were playing because the stuff you enjoyed and you just were admiring these guys?
well, a little bit of both. I mean, like
Okay.
in the beginning, I was trying to learn like every Black Sabbath riff, and I couldn't solo for the life of me back in the day. But I would like I very early on I grew to really like Richie Blackmore's guitar style. So there are a lot of things I copied from him. There are a lot of things I copied from Schenker and Gary Moore. Of course, not even as close as like what they do. Robin Trower.
Yeah.
I think I got my love for Hendrix and also that style of playing from Robin Trower because he was very influenced by Hendrix as well. That kind of that bluesy, I love. Robin Trower's the guy who got me into the wah wah pedal. I mean, to this day, it's like almost every time I play, I got to step on that friggin' Crybaby wah wah. And I've had a Crybaby since the original one died many years ago. I have another one, but yeah, for in the beginning, it was my BC Rich guitar, the PV amp, a little distortion box, and a wah wah pedal. That's all I had for many years. That's it. That's all I needed, right? So and then eventually a guy like Yngwie Malmsteen caught my ear, and I got really into trying to do
Oh
that
yeah.
classical type stuff and the neoclassical shredding thing. But of course, I never really could do it like that. And I went away to college, and I brought all my stuff with me to school, and along the way, I wound up selling the BC Rich. I wound up buying a guitar from Chris Caffrey, who I grew up
Yeah.
with, Trans-Siberian Orchestra and Sabotage, and he sold me a really early Ibanez. Like back when Ibanez was just a pretty new company, they had like Strat copies and stuff. So I
Yeah.
bought like Ibanez Roadstar, I believe it was called, and so I had that for a couple of years, and I eventually sold that, and then I started I wound up getting in the early 90s, I wound up getting another Ibanez, an RG550, and then I bought then I think I eventually got the Les Paul bug, and I bought my first Epiphone Les Paul back in I don't know, 93 or 94. And I was never the same after that. And then at one point I had like four Epiphone Les Pauls. And I always said, because a lot of people would go to me and say, well, why do you keep buying the Epiphones? Why don't you go get a Gibson? And I was like, well, I'm not
Money.
very good. Yeah, it's like it's a lot of money.
It's
what
a
do
lot.
what do I need a Gibson for? Right? I'm not playing in bands. I'm not recording anything. And really, what's the big deal? It doesn't, for my purposes. I don't think I need one. Well,
Then you got one.
and then I got one. I got a really good deal, and I have it over there. I have a Tobacco Burst Gibson Les Paul. It's a classic. And
Yeah.
it wasn't. Yeah, I bought it used. I bought a lot of guitars used, most of them actually. And I was like, wow, this is pretty damn good. And then not even a year later, I got the bug to get another one, and I really wanted a gold top, so I bought
Oh
a
man.
gold top traditional Les Paul traditional. And after playing these two guitars, I was like, and then playing because I still had a couple of the Epiphones, and I'm like, there's a big difference.
It's a huge difference.
There's a big difference.
And you can't, you really, it's just kind of like what you said. You can't really tell people that either. But if you put that guitar in their hand and let them play the Les Paul next to the Epiphone, the Gibson next to the Epiphone, it is worlds of difference.
The necks are different. The feel of the body's different. The electronics are different.
Yeah.
Pickups are night and day. And I was like, well, I could, the Epiphone's still a great looking guitar.
Yes.
But, the headstock is different. And I was like, well, I could go and put different pickups on all these and everything like that. But might as well just go get a real one. So I sold all of my Epiphone Les Pauls, every one of them. I had like 4 of them. I sold them all. And then I had the 2 that I just mentioned. And then I was like, you know what? I really want a cherry one, right? A sunburst cherry. So I bought, it was a lot of money, but I bought a Les Paul Standard.
Oh, nice.
And it's it could be the best guitar I have. It's either that or the gold top because they're both great. I'll
Does the gold top have P90s in it, or is it standard mic or pickups?
No P90s.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is.
Yeah! Look at that. That's beautiful. Look at the binding on that. Amazing.
So, and it's heavy, but the neck is amazing. And this is a 2015. So this is quite good. And it sounds amazing. It's got, burst buckers on it. And in fact, both this has burst buckers, as does the gold top. Whereas my classic has 57s.
57s.
And I really like the way the 57s sound, but I hate zebra pickups.
Yes, I'm just going to say I put plates on my zebras. Any chance I get, if I've got zebras, I'll put plates on them. I hate the look of them.
Well, here's the thing. I actually brought my classic with the zebra pickups into local guy that I've been using for years, the big guitar shop here that their technicians are really good. And I said, put the chrome covers on them, right? Because I just hate the way they look, but I like the pickups. And he called me up like 2 days later and he's like, dude, he goes, every time there's something about the way the 57s are set up in the pocket there that every time I went to put the chrome caps on them, it shorted out the pickups. He goes, I tried it. And he goes, I did it multiple times. And he goes, I don't know if you play live or anything like that, but I don't want you to be at a gig or something like that. And all of a sudden these pickups short out. And it's like everybody that I've told the story to are like, that's impossible. That's never happened before.
It baffles me, but I would not put it past it. And I think that's kind of telling of guitars in general. You've mentioned 3 guitars that you've got there, and each one of them you've mentioned for different reasons and things you like about them differently. And you can literally put a 2015 standard Les Paul and the same exact 2015 standard Les Paul model next to each other, and they're going to be different. Something about them is going to be different. The neck's going to have a little bit of different wood, or it's going to slide a little bit better, or the bridge pickup's just going to be a little bit hotter than the other one. And I think that's what's great about picking up used equipment and used stuff like that, is because you inherit something that's different than anything else. It's going to be completely different. The over my shoulder, I bought an area hollow body. It's like the Gibson E350 or ES350, whatever they call the hollow bodies, the Gibson ones, and it's the lawsuit era, so it's got the Gibson headstock. And I bought it from a kid who had just threw it around, didn't take care of it. The neck was so, like you said, it was so out of shape. I took it to the guy, had it fixed, and it sounds amazing. And I would put it right up against one of the Gibsons at this point. But it's like that. It's kind of like you're taking something and making it your own, and you're taking the instrument and now making it your own and stuff. So
yeah. So I still have the 57s in, and I still hate the way the pickups look. I actually, right before the pandemic hit, I was going to go bring it in. I was going to have pearly gates put in.
Yeah.
Seymour Duncan Pearly Gates pickups in because everybody raves about those, and I know a lot of people who put those in Les Pauls, and I was like, so I might still do that. I haven't done it, Now here we are, like going on 3 years into this pandemic thing. It's like, so I might circle back and do that at some point. But the one thing about that particular guitar, I love the way it looks. It sounds really good. It's got it's got a 50s neck on it. It's really wide.
Yeah, the really wide, thick necks. Yeah, I bought a custom, and same way. It's. I think in playing Fenders, I hated Fenders for years because I got on that Les Paul bug as well, and I hated playing Fenders for years. And I finally picked one up about 2 years ago, and it is quickly becoming my favorite guitar. I think it's because of the neck, though. I think it's because of how slim that neck is and how easy it is to bend strings and do stuff like that with it. So, yeah, I hear you on that one.
I'm not doing anything with it just yet because now I've been eyeing. They have the new Les Paul standards, the 2021s, the 2022s. They now make it in a wonderful bourbon burst.
Yeah, I saw them the other day too.
So part of me is thinking that I may just at some point. I mean, I love the tobacco burst top on. I really do.
Yeah.
But what I may do is I may take that classic and I may trade it in for a.
That's the tobacco burst one.
New one. Yeah. And,
okay.
Yeah, the tobacco
so
burst.
Yeah, just.
And then get a new standard, with bourbon burst, and just obviously I'll have to pay a little bit extra money, but that's okay. And get because that's got the 60s neck, and which I love.
Yeah, the thinner.
I may just do that. That's why I haven't done anything with the classic because I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to spend any more money on it just in case I decide to trade it in. I like I said, it sounds great, it looks great with the exception of the pickups, but that neck is like a little wide for me. Especially considering, the gold top neck is unbelievable.
Yeah.
As the standard is as well. I think my favorite neck out of all the guitars I have is the gold top. It's unbelievable.
So that never translated into a band. You said you played a little bit, but you never really, but you enjoy playing. I mean, you still enjoy and play, picking up the guitar and playing. How often you say you're playing?
Oh, lately it's been bad. I mean, if I play once or twice a week, that's a lot.
You're still keeping your fingers in it. That's a good thing.
Yeah, but my playing nowadays, I've got a little Marshall tube amp, I've got a Fender Blues Junior, I've got a little mini Orange Crush. I've got amps all over, small amps all over the place. I've got a pedal board. I almost never plug in. Oh, geez, here we go. Come on, go. Doesn't play with the toys all day, and now it's like time to play. But the thing is, I rarely lately like plug in and play through amps and play.
Yeah.
It's usually, generally speaking, of late, and I'm talking like the last 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
I'll grab one of the guitars and just bring it into the living room while I'm watching TV or something. I'll play and noodle around for like 2-3 hours.
It's weird because I just started doing that myself. Like about 3 or 4 months ago, I realized that my calluses were starting to wear down. So I just started picking up my guitar while we're downstairs watching football or something. I'll just start noodling. I'll just play scales, play some songs I know and everything just to keep my fingers up.
I do that more than anything else. It's very rare now that I'll actually. I think I probably plugged in like twice in the last 4 months. That's not like me. I used to play at least a couple times a week, through the amps, but I haven't been.
I love creating a Music Musing podcast. It lets me see how music affects people in different ways. We're always looking for interesting guests, so if you know someone in the music industry or someone who really has a great music-related story, reach out to us at musicmusingfeedback@gmail.com. This podcast is produced out of my pocket, so if you want to help with that process, we also have a Patreon at patreon.com/musicmusing. You can join for as little as $1 a month, and we have some cool behind-the-scenes pictures and stories, and even a sticker. You could even co-host a show idea that you have rolling around in your head. And lastly, please leave us a great review on whatever platform you listen to your podcasts on. It helps us reach out to more people who may enjoy these conversations. Thank you for your time, and back to the Music Musing podcast.
Let's jump back to that. How did you get into? Your love of music obviously comes from past and growing up and falling in love with this music early. But I see the wall behind you. I see the CD wall behind you. I know what you and I have talked many times before about how you feel about music. What got you started on the writing side of it, on writing up on albums? How'd you get into that?
Yeah, I just kind of fell into that. I mean, in college, I worked at the radio station for a little bit, and then I worked at the TV station for a little bit. And when I was with the TV station, I did a weekly program, which was I would travel to some of the local concert venues in the area near where the college was, and we would record like live updates about who's coming to play at the venues.
Oh, cool.
Week. We used to call it God, what do we call it? Concert update or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was called. And so I started to, this kind of like music reporting type of thing. Got kind of a little bug for that, but that was way before, right? That was like in the 80s.
Okay.
And so about like maybe a decade later, I want to say it was probably like 90, 97 or something like that. I don't even remember exactly what prompted me, but I was really into like progressive rock at the time. I got out of metal for a while in the 90s because, the landscape had changed. You had all this alternative and grunge stuff and rap and pop and dance music, all this kind of stuff. I was like, and
yeah.
A lot of metal bands were kind of going in the underground. So I got into prog big time. And I started reading like these, progressive rock and metal magazines that had lots of reviews of stuff. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then, the internet was kind of new at the time.
Yeah.
So I started going on to these like prog rock forum websites, where you go on, you could read reviews, you could communicate with other people.
BBSs? Are you talking about BBSs?
I don't even remember what they were systems. Yeah, there was one in particular. I don't even remember what they called them back then, but it was called ProgNet.
Okay.
And it was a progressive rock forum for fans, where the fans could even contribute reviews of albums.
Okay.
People could communicate and chat and all this kind of stuff. So that's where it all started. So I started going on there, and I started like doing little reviews of albums, and I did it for like a year, and I got to know a lot of people who were doing it as well. And all of a sudden, I kind of got the bug. And then one day, one of the print magazines I was reading was called Progression Magazine. And it was a magazine that came out, I believe, quarterly, and it had been in circulation for quite a while. It was kind of like a one-man operation, but he had a whole bunch of writers, and they would interview, guys in Jethro Tull and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Yes and Genesis and a lot of the lesser-known bands, and there would always be tons of reviews in each issue.
Yeah.
So they ran an ad that they were looking for a writer to review albums. So I was like, wow, I'd be interested in that. And they had an email address to send an inquiry to. So I sent an email to this guy, and I got a response back. And the guy's name was James Bickers. And James is like, hey, what's going on? I saw your email. I went and checked out some of the links you sent for, some of the stuff you've been doing on ProgNet. And James was one of the writers for Progression. And he said, I see you're also into, some metal stuff too. I said, yeah. He goes, well, let me ask you a question. He goes, I probably shouldn't be doing this. He goes, but I'm actually starting up my own magazine.
Oh, no, really?
As a side thing from what I do with Progression. Would you be interested in coming over and, writing for me instead of going to Progression? And I was like, part of me was kind of like, but I really want to write for Progression because I don't know who the hell you are, right?
Yeah.
And then he's like, and I said, well, what's your magazine going to be about? He goes, I think it's going to come out a little bit more often than Progression. It's going to be mostly full color, and it's going to be centered on progressive metal and progressive rock. He goes, we're going to do interviews, we're going to review stuff. I can send you stuff to review and all the blah, 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 blah. I was like, cool. What's it going to be called? He goes, well, it's called Sea of Tranquility. And I was like, all right, I'm in. I was like, whatever. What do I got to lose, right? So, and I actually still have all the issues that I did it for. I think I did it for about 2 years. Okay. So he brought me on board as a staff writer for Sea of Tranquility. There was probably like maybe 10 of us, right? And he would send me these boxes full of CDs. I would review them, send him the reviews. Occasionally, he would either hook me up with people to interview, or I would go get them myself, right? So I was interviewing people, I was writing reviews, and the issues would come out. They look great. They're considered collector's items now. So it was like, we did that. I think we published a couple a year. It was a big pain in the butt and a lot of work for him. But, we made it work. And it was a subscription-based thing, right? So we had a good chunk of people that were subscribers. I think we had like four or 500 subscribers at the time, which, not a lot, but for a brand new magazine, not too bad.
Yeah.
You'd see them in the Barnes and Noble occasionally, in Borders bookstore, which was kind of neat.
That's awesome.
And then right around 2000, after I'd been doing it for about 2 years, he gives me a call one day and he goes, "Hey, so I got a question for you." I'm like, "What's up?" He goes, "I just got a job as a DJ at this local radio station that I love, and it's kind of like the job I've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And my wife is pregnant, and I just don't think I'm ever going to have time to dedicate to this thing." And he goes, "I just sold the rights to the magazine to John Collins, who owned Progression Magazine." And I was like, "Well, what does that mean?" He goes, "That means the print magazine is no more."
Oh.
But part of the agreement is that we could take Sea of Tranquility to the web. He goes,
"Interesting.
So this has been kind of going on for a little while. I've already created like a very kind of crude website for Sea of Tranquility, and I've thrown some reviews up there and stuff." So he shared all that with me. I took a look at it. I was like, at the time it was pretty crude, but it was 2000. So he's like, he goes, "So my other question for you is, I don't know if I'm going to have the time or anything to kind of do this." He goes, "I want to kind of hand the reins over to someone, and you seem like the guy who probably could do this." And I was saying to myself, I'm like, I don't know anything about running the website or running what am I, So we kind of talked about it for a couple months, and then we were moving into 2001. And so I finally agreed. So he basically, for a little bit of money, he basically sold me the what he put into getting the website created and all that kind of stuff. And so I took it over. I kept a couple of the writers from that we carried over from the
magazine. Yeah.
A couple of them decided that they wanted to go on their merry way, which was fine. And a good friend of mine also happens to be like a IT guy and a web designer.
Okay.
So I brought him on board to learn the ropes and to make some changes on the website. So we totally redid the whole website. I brought a bunch of new writers on board. I went and put out some like little ads and things like that, and in places and stuff. And before you know it, like fast forward like a year later, maybe 2 years later, I had like 25 writers from all over the world.
Wow.
I was communicating with all sorts of record labels and bands, and we were getting sent CDs in like crazy. So literally, I was constantly mailing CDs out to people all over the place to review stuff. And we started building up this website, or this webzine. We started doing interviews, concert reviews. I mean, all this stuff. And we started to get a pretty good name out in the industry as someone that, as a webzine that, like, if you send Sea of Tranquility your album to review, they will review it. Yeah. And they knew they could count on us. Sometimes that always didn't work out in our favor, because we got sent a lot of stuff that maybe, we spent a lot of time on reviewing, and maybe we overlooked stuff that probably was a little more important, but that's what it's all about. So So it was going really good. I mean, I was getting asked by record labels, "You want to go? What are you doing next Wednesday? Such and such a band is playing in New York City. We'd love for you to go in with your camera and take pictures of the show and interview the band backstage. Free access." Well, so that was happening left and right. I was going to concerts all the time, on the guest list, in the photo pit, all this kind of stuff. So I was doing.
Is this with doing your J job?
Yeah.
Oh man, okay.
So like I literally work a full day and then hop on the train and go into New York City or wherever. And
wow,
it was crazy, but it was fun. I mean, you're hobnobbing with all these people and you're going out, and it's I was a lot younger then, obviously. But, so it was going great. So all of a sudden, Sea of Tranquility is becoming a lot of fun, and a lot of people are starting to take notice. Again, it's just a website, but I'm at all the shows. We're doing all these concert reviews. We're reviewing all these albums. We're interviewing all these people. It's really, really cool. And then probably like around 2000, so this went on for a number of years.
Yeah.
And then around like maybe 2012, 2013, I started to notice that traffic wasn't as good on the website as it had been.
Uh-huh.
And I started seeing popping up all over the place people basically reviewing and talking about music on YouTube, on videos.
Yes.
And all of a sudden video content is like the hot thing. That's what everybody wants to do, wants to watch. So I was like, all right. I was like, I ignored it for like a year or so. And then I was like, well, maybe I should give this a try. Couldn't hurt. At first I was like, it'll be just like kind of like a little side thing to complement the webzine. Because to me, the webzine was always the driving factor of everything that we did, right? Review new bands, their new releases from old bands, classic stuff, all, whatever. That was always, so my mantra in doing this was always to give exposure to the bands and the artists because they need it, right?
Okay.
And also to turn people on who are like me, who are music nerds, to new music they never heard before. That's always what it's never been about making a name for myself, or it's always about doing right by the artist, and in turn making sure that people get exposed to something they never heard before. Because that's always how
it's pure for the love of music, and that's why we do this. Yeah,
that's why we do it, right?
Yes,
I love getting turned on to new music from people, right? It's like you're not gonna like everything, but it's like, but chances are you might find your new favorite band might be right around the corner, or a favorite album by a band that was from 40 years ago that you never had exposure to before. All of a sudden now you're like, hey, this is great. So I decided, all right, so I'm gonna start up a YouTube channel. I'm going to call it See Tranquility. I don't know anything. I'm a broadcasting major back when I went to college in the early 80s. So here we are all these years later, and I'm like, all right, I got to be in front of the camera. I got to, I'm like, it's been forever since I've done this kind of stuff. So I remember the first shoot like it was yesterday. I basically put a chair in the middle of this office, and I put my computer on top of like a little snack table on top of all these books, and I basically sat there. And I was like, hello, I'm Pete Pardo. Welcome to See Tranquility. We're going to review 5 CDs today. And I would basically grab a couple things and I'd be like, okay, this is such and such. And it was just terrible. And I looked like I was like mortified and stiff and it just, the quality was terrible because I was just using my laptop. I wasn't using any mics or nothing like that. The lighting was awful. And I did that for like those same type of boring, flat episodes for like a year, and nobody was watching. And I would promote it on the webzine and all this kind of stuff, and I'd get 50 views, 100 views, 30 views. I mean, I was like, and I didn't title them anything fun. Like it would just be like, See Your Tranquility episode number such and such, and then in the description I'd be like, reviewing albums from this band, this band, this band, this band, and like nobody was watching. And I'm like, man, this sucks. I said, why did I decide to do this? Right. So this was 2014, and so I did it for like a year. And then I think the first time that I actually had anybody watch any of the episodes is I went to my buddy Chris Caffrey's house and we did an episode from there. It was his first time on the channel. It was the first time I had anybody on except for me. And it happened to be a pretty notable guy, right? So Chris is on. We did a show from there. I think he had a solo album coming out at the time. So we talked about the solo album. We reviewed a couple other things and just talked, whatever. And like 1,000 people watched it. And I was like, holy cow, I'm in the big time, right? 1,000 people, woo! And then I went and did a couple other regular, my boring videos, and nobody watched those. I'm like, oh, man, what do I got to do here, right? So, because, I didn't know how the whole business on YouTube works and the algorithm and, the number of subscribers. And if you don't have a certain amount of views and subscribers, they're not going to promote your videos at all and all that kind of stuff. So it took me a while to learn that. And it was really discouraging. So I started eventually to realize that I got to do other things here. I can't just, people aren't watching the review shows much.
Right.
But so then I remember someone pretty prominent died. Was it Greg Lake from Emerson, Lake and Palmer? It might have been him, or it might have been someone else. I don't know. Some notable, maybe it was Jack Bruce. I don't know. I don't remember who it was, but someone pretty notable that I was into, a legendary guy passed away, and I did maybe Chris Squire, maybe Chris Squire, I don't remember, and I did a tribute video, and a lot of people watched it, and it started 1,000 views, 1,500 views, 2,000 views. I was like, wow, because at the time that was big time.
Yeah.
Right? And so I was like, all right. And then I started doing, like, I think I did my first like top 10 songs episode. I picked some band and I talked about my favorite songs, and then I did I think I did my first rant video, and the rant video did really good.
I've been on a couple of those. I love those. Those are my favorites.
Yeah. And then I did another rant video, and the views started going up. And then I did a couple little interviews, and I started doing the Ranking the Album show. And then I did like a month-long show where I did like favorite albums by year or something like that. And I went through like a 30-year, the month was 30 days long. I went through 30 years in, rock and roll history, like 1965 to 95. And I picked my favorite album from each year. And those did like big business. And all of a sudden I started to see the subscriber count going up. And I remember when I first hit 1,000, it took me like 4 years to get to 1,000 subscribers. I'm like, holy cow! And 1,000 subscribers, you can join the monetization program, which means a lot of ads, and you can start making a little bit of money. Well, I started doing that. Wasn't really making any money, but at least the ads were running and stuff. And then, like, I don't know, I hit it took me like another year or so to get like up to 5,000 subscribers, and then like it started to gain momentum. And then I hit 10,000, and then all of a sudden, like every video is getting like, a couple thousand views, and a rant video would get 20 or $25,000 views. Then I did a really, probably I think the video that has the highest views on my entire channel is like the history of 70s progressive rock, or the top 70s progressive rock albums. I think to this day it's got like 500,000 views or something.
Wow.
Like that. And that exploded. And then I had Chris Allo on, and we did like the history of Black Sabbath. It's like a 3-part episode. The history of Judas Priest, 2 or 3-part episode. And people are watching those like crazy. And then I started doing the Ranking the Album shows.
Yeah. Which,
and, before you know it, I started to realize, I'm like, wow, it's like YouTube is pushing my stuff. People are subscribing like crazy. And I started to notice that certain types of programming did really well. And I still did the review stuff, but I did a little bit less of it, started to do these other things. And I started to every now and then have regular people on, like you and your brother came on, and Chris Allo was on, Butch Jones was on, Martin Popoff, little by little, some of these, regular faces would come on, not all the time, but, and then I got the bug that it's like, well, you know what? Because I would just put stuff up on there haphazardly. Whenever I get to a video, I do it. I didn't always do something every day. But I started to say, you know what, wouldn't it be kind of cool if every day of the week were certain Sea of Tranquility programs, kind of like a TV station or a cable station, a cable network, right? So on Mondays, you have this show. Tuesdays, you have this show. Wednesdays, you have this show. But it was still like kind of like early. And then we started doing a show just out of like pure accident. I was doing a couple shows, once every couple of weeks with a couple of guys that I knew here from the local area.
Yeah.
And Chris Allo, Ryan Scout, Steve Keeler, Nick Franco. And it started to become like this kind of fun, and we would talk about metal topics. Yeah. And it was like kind of like a debate show. And, and we started joking around on the show that we're all from the Hudson Valley. We all know each other, blah, blah, blah. And then one day, I think it was Steve Keeler one day, goes, the more people we get on this show, it's going to look like the Hollywood Squares.
Hollywood Squares.
And I was like, why don't we call this the Hudson Valley Squares? And why don't we maybe add a couple extra people? So we have other friends in our circle. So I invited like Butch Jones and Lynn Versace on. And Steve was like, well, I know this young woman who grew up in the Hudson Valley. She just moved to Philly not long ago, but she used to come into my store all the time. She's really into music. She's only 21, but she's very knowledgeable. And her name is Sydney Taylor. Maybe she might be good for the show. So we brought Sydney on, and all of a sudden, we went from this channel that was nothing but guys, right? And now we've got these two women on this particular program. That because let's face it, guys like to watch women on videos. Especially women who are into the same type of music that they are.
Right, there you go.
Knowledgeable,
they can relate.
So all of a sudden, then we've got this show, the Hudson Valley Squares, that all of a sudden is by far the most popular show on the channel. And we're like, all right, we're going to do this every Monday. And we've done the Hudson Valley Squares pretty much every Monday without fail, maybe once or twice. We haven't had it for like 2 years now. And it's, like I said, the most popular show on the channel, because I think we're all, it's like the R-rated show on the channel. Sometimes it's little racy language.
Yes.
And,
it is definitely not child friendly.
No, but it's that's who we all are, and if we get together in person, that's how we talk.
That's who you would be, anyways.
Right. Well, so it's kind of like a bunch of friends sitting down at a bar just talking about music, and
I think that's a good circle back to what everything that you're doing on there, though, is still at the core about music and appreciation for music, or depreciation for music. It depends on the week. But I think that's what, again, what you and I do with our time that's outside of our daily work, or spending time with our families. We care about music, and we talk about music. And every one of these programs that you've come up with, past moving from the webzine magazine / to video, is still at the core about music. It's still you guys coming together and talking about the things that you love the most. And it just so happens to be metal and prog and rock that I love as well. So I'm attracted to it. And like you said, people are getting attracted to it, and you're putting those shows together because of that love for music. And I think that's the reason I wanted to get that behind the scenes of you and find out kind of how that music got to you. Now, we didn't even touch on concerts. Can you like put a number to how many concerts you've been to in your life? Exactly.
Yeah, it's hundreds. It's hundreds. Yeah.
Is it equal to the CDs you have on the wall behind you?
No, not quite, but but it's in the hundreds. Yeah, I've seen most every band that I love. I've seen them live, unless obviously I was too young at the time and they all the quits before I was able to go see shows. But most of the bands that I really love a lot that are still active today, I've seen live. So it's
so I'll hit you with the 3 quick questions in. What is your, and I hate when people ask the favorite song kind of thing, but I'm going to do it sort of. Favorite 10-minute plus song? Do you have one off the top of your head?
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure it's 10 minutes. I might have to double check that.
As long as we're close, we're good.
Yeah, it's Child in Time by Deep Purple.
Child in Time by Deep Purple. I'm about to actually put a link to that on YouTube. Do you actually review that in any of your videos or anything at any point, or?
I've talked about it like a lot.
Okay.
I've certainly talked about it a lot, but it's on an album from 1970, so it's an old one. But I've talked about it. If you just do, go to my history of Deep Purple or the ranking the albums of Deep Purple on my channel, I've talked about it many times. I'll tell you exactly how long it is. Let's see here.
Now I'm curious.
It is 10:20.
Yeah, you did it. And not only that, and you snapped it off like that. I guess that history
it's probably my second favorite song of all time. So
in general, and it just happened to be 10 minutes. Perfect. Yeah. I asked the right question. So is there a CD or an album that has eluded you, that you've been looking for and that you just cannot find, and you would love to have in your copies behind you or in your collection?
I pretty much own everything I've ever really wanted. However, that being said, I'm a big Jethro Tull fan.
Okay.
And Jethro Tull, they have been releasing these kind of like anniversary deluxe editions of all of their classic albums. So this is Thick as a Brick. This is their 1972 classic, and I just got this recently. And this is like going for, because with these they only do a certain amount of copies, and when they're gone, they're gone. So if you don't buy them when they first release these, for $40-$50 or whatever, by the time they're gone, then all of a sudden the people that still have copies, they go and sell them for ridiculous prices. So I have most of them, but this one was eluding me, and I was looking out at prices online. I mean, people want like $300, $400, $500 for this. Jeez. And I'm like, I'm not paying it. So one day a viewer sent me a message and he goes, I actually have one that I would sell to you for a really good price, because I know you really want it and I don't really have to have it. So he sold it to me for a very reasonable price. But the one that I really want is the box set. And by the way, these are fantastic. They have it's like a full book.
Here. Nice. That's what I thought. I thought you grabbed a book. Oh, that's nice. That's really cool.
Yeah, so it's got, usually they have like a remixed and remastered CD, all sorts of bonus tracks, never before released stuff, live
Nice.
stuff, DVD or Blu-ray with all the stuff in surround sound and all that kind of stuff. But their 1976 album, Songs from the Wood, has also been released in that format. And I didn't buy it when it first came out, and I probably could have got it like a year or two ago for a fairly decent price, although still a lot, and I didn't. And now whatever copies I see out there are like $400 or $500.
Oh
I
yeah.
really want it because I've got like all the other ones. So I'm like, ugh. So anybody watching this has a copy of the Songs from the Wood Deluxe box set by Jethro Tull, and you're willing to negotiate a pretty decent price, please let me know.
I hear he's willing to even trade a guitar at this point. No, just kidding. So I have two questions left. One of them's a really deep one. It might be deep. I'm going to throw it at you. If you think it's too deep, we'll audible to the last one. If there was something in the music industry that you could change, what would it be? Or do you want to skip that and go to an easy one?
That's a pretty good question. If there's something, myself personally, I get very frustrated at the shift away from physical media.
Really?
Okay. I'm not. Because of my age, I grew up in the age of vinyl, and I was there at the beginning of the CD age. And as you can see by behind me, I mean,
holy moly,
physical everything, and I have a whole closet full of CDs and DVDs and Blu-rays to the left of me here that you don't even see. So I'm a physical media guy.
Okay.
To me, streaming stuff on Spotify or like downloading a file, that's not having music, because that can disappear tomorrow and you got nothing. So I still take my CDs with me everywhere. I play them all around the house. I listen to them in the car. I have a couple of 160 gigabyte iPods, right? I do, which have a lot of my music on there. I use that at the gym or when I travel. But for the most part, I'm still listening to CDs all the time. And I like having, I like, opening it up and taking out that booklet and looking at all the cool stuff and seeing who plays on what, and who produced it and where they recorded it, and occasionally I'll look at the lyrics and pictures of the bands and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, granted, it takes up a lot of room. I totally get that, because I'm limited space now as it is, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I think if like tomorrow, like all this ended and like no more physical media, everything is streaming and downloads, I'd be pretty upset. I mean, it really, in a way, it really wouldn't matter to me. I have enough music to last me the rest of my life. I'd never need to buy another thing, and I'm totally happy.
But still, what a great take on it, because I really thought that would be something that would be, it's more philosophical. You could almost do an entire hour on just what would you change in the music industry, but you snap to it again. And I think it's really, I know we're going to get close to your time here. I'm trying to keep it short, but it's amazing how little. I think we're actually at a generation now, especially even my son, where that physicality was never part of their life. Like they never picked up a CD. They never picked up an album. I mean, albums are starting to come back into stores. You're starting to see that big fad of albums coming back and reprinting a lot of those older musicians' albums and stuff. But I still don't think they've had that experience of looking at the liner notes and looking at, when you see them on Spotify, you see, the band that made them, but who wrote it? Was it just the main two guys, or was this one written by Peter Criss? It's that question mark you don't see. In Spotify, you see Kiss. Kiss is the who did that. You don't see that little liner note of who did it. So, that's really good, man. You make me think about that the rest of the day.
I'm a collector too, and I think that has a lot. I collect a lot of things, so for me, it's all part of it. But yeah, I mean, my 6-year-old grandson comes here to visit, and he looks at this and he goes, "Why do you have all this?" And I'm like, because to him, what is this? He doesn't know what these are.
Yeah.
And, when I go to him, do you want to watch a movie? And he goes, yeah. And he turns on like, Disney Plus or Netflix.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I got all these movies. He goes, oh, but they're on here. And he doesn't understand that, like, well, I'm going to show you the movie the way it's supposed to be shown, and it's going to be better quality than the streaming version. He doesn't care. To him, it's like he wants to take that remote and go look and see what that's
here.
Like.
Sit down. Let me talk to you about the Criterion collection.
Yes, right. Who cares, right? It's like, and all the bonus material. But they have this great documentary. It's like, oh, that's boring. So, am I an old dinosaur? Probably, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Hey, Pete Pardo, thank you for so much for coming on. Where can they find you and your all the stuff you've got, the website, the YouTube? Where can we find you on that?
Yeah, so the webzine is www.seaoftranquility.org.
Yes.
It should be how old the website is. We were a .org.
I know.
We've got like 23,000 plus album reviews on there, hundreds of interviews, and all sorts of fun stuff. The YouTube channel, just search for Sea of Tranquility prog, PROG, on YouTube. I also have another YouTube channel called Comic Book Geezers, and that's all about all that stuff you saw up there. Old comics from the 60s and 70s. Myself and my partner in crime, Wild Bill. We talk about all the old comics. We take them out, we open them up, we show them, we talk about them, tell the storylines, all that kind of good stuff. So yeah, it's no shortage of places to find me out on the called the internet.
Excellent, Pete. Again, thank you very much. Appreciate it, and I hope to see you on my show maybe again. And I would love to be on one of your shows again. Put me on a rant. Put me down for a rant. I can do that.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Take care, Craig. Bye-bye.
Yeah, see ya.
Thank you for choosing Music Musing. We hope this story not only gave you a little insight to what music means to someone, but it may also change how music fits into your life. So be sure and drop us a line at MusicMusingFeedback@gmail.com and let us know your music story.